Immediately staking a claim in the center, this pawn push opens diagonals for potential piece development. Developing the knight to f6 immediately contests the center and prepares for castling, setting a flexible foundation for black's position. Seizing central space, c4 immediately challenges black's knight and prepares to expand on the queen side. Solidifying the center and preparing to develop the bishop to the queen's side, though it slightly obstructs the light-squared bishop's immediate scope. Developing the knight to c3 solidifies central control and prepares for kingside development, subtly aiming to restrict black's typical queenside counterplay. This pin on the knight immediately challenges white's central pawn structure and creates dynamic possibilities. Asserting queenside influence, this targets the undefended b7 pawn and develops the queen proactively. Challenging white's queenside ambition, this pawn thrust immediately seeks to disrupt white's coordinated piece play and gain central space. Striking at the pawn chain immediately disrupts black's central control and opens lines for rapid piece development. Abandoning the center, the knight ventures to the edge, a risky gamble for queenside activity. Challenging black's initiative, this thrust aims to disrupt piece coordination and gain space on the queen side. Sacrificing tempo for piece activity, black aims to disrupt white's pawn structure and open lines. Developing knights with tempo, this knight now eyes central squares and prepares for castling, actively participating in the game's flow. Securing the king with castling is a vital step towards active piece play, anticipating potential pawn breaks in the center. Unleashing the bishop on the long diagonal, white aims to disrupt black's pawn structure and create attacking prospects. Safely withdrawing the bishop clears the way for development and prepares to contest the center with moves like d5. Opening the center with e4 seizes space and activates white's pieces, aiming to pressure black's slightly cramped position. Reinforcing the pawn chain and preparing for the central pawn push, this solidifies black's position and aims to free the queenside knight. Developing the bishop harmonizes with the queenside pawn structure, preparing for a solid central defense and potential kingside expansion. Strategically repositioning the bishop avoids further tempo loss and prepares to contest central squares. Securing the king's sanctuary before launching further central operations provides a vital layer of defense. A solid repositioning, bringing the bishop back to a more defensive posture while eyeing the d5 square. Shifting the queen to c2 facilitates queen-rook battery along the c-file and supports potential pawn breaks, while keeping an eye on the king side. An attempt to gain space and dislodge the bishop, though it might concede an outpost on g5. Developing the bishop to f4 now exerts pressure along the a7-g1 diagonal, eyeing potential weaknesses. A daring leap into the center, aiming to disrupt white's queenside control and open lines. Exploiting the pin, this pawn advances, creating immediate tension and challenging black's center. This knight's aggressive central intrusion promises exciting tactical skirmishes, aiming to disrupt white's pawn structure. Opening the e-file now challenges black's bishop and creates dynamic play, a crucial shift from the earlier positional maneuvering. Recapturing with the bishop resolves central tension, opening the e-file for potential future activity while solidifying the pawn structure. Unleashing the rook aims to seize the open d-file, pressuring black's bishop and potentially disrupting their pawn structure. Unlocking the d-file for your rooks is paramount, but this queen repositioning conserves energy for the inevitable central skirmish. Unraveling black's queenside entanglement through this seemingly simple exchange clears the way for immediate piece activation. Reclaiming the pawn immediately solidifies black's central presence and sets up potential tactical skirmishes on the e-file. Unleashing a knight to threaten the queen and potentially dominate the center. Challenging the central control, black prepares to contest the open d-file and activate the rook for potential counterplay. Asserting dominion over the queenside, this pawn push aims to dislodge black's knight and expand white's reach. Reclaiming central influence, Black repositions the knight to prepare for potential pawn pushes or to contest the d-file. Unlocking the d-file for artillery, white gambles on initiative despite slightly disrupting pawn structure. Doubling pawns on the c-file creates a weakness, but opens lines for your rook. Pushing the pawn forward aims to seize space and disrupt Black's knight coordination. Black aims to reposition the knight for better central influence and a potential knight outpost on d5. Opening up the a-file with the queen, preparing to exploit any weakness on the queen side. Unlocking the c-file for rook activity is paramount here, preparing to contest crucial open lines. Unlocking the powerful a-file, this bishop exchange aims to disrupt Black's queenside pawn structure and create lasting weaknesses. Reclaiming the initiative, this retreat prepares to contest the crucial central file. Challenging Black's central control, this knight repositions for aggressive queenside play and potential central pressure. Reclaiming the e-file's potential presence offers a dynamic counterplay against White's advanced pawns. Sacrificing the knight here opens lines and forces a queen trade, simplifying into a favorable endgame for White. Securing the central squares with the queen's reignited piece of play after exchanges. Consolidating forces onto the vital d-file, preparing to exert pressure on Black's somewhat passive queen and rook. This pawn push opens a vital file for the rook, targeting the queenside weakness. Reinforcing the kingside, this move prepares to establish central dominance and potentially launch an attack. Exchanging the rooks opens a crucial central file for White, potentially leading to a strong queenside breakthrough. Reclaiming the open file, White readies to press their advantage on the queenside. Reclaiming the central e-file offers a vital open line for rook activity. This queen repositioning aims to re-establish central control and potentially prepare for a queenside pawn advance or piece infiltration. Shifting the monarch to the side squares, this way may prevent its direct exposure, but it also sacrifices vital tempo for the impending queenside action. Opening the d-file for the rook creates immense pressure on Black's queen and potential infiltration routes. Preparing for a defensive setup, but this maneuver weakens the king's immediate safety on the kingside. Solidifying kingside structure while preparing potential pawn advances. Re-anchoring the knight to the center aims to challenge White's kingside initiative. Unlocking the kingside and creating an immediate threat on the 8th rank, this move injects fresh tactical life into the position. A bold thrust, seeking to break open the king's defensive shell and create active piece play, though it does leave the knight somewhat exposed. Unleashing the bishop to c4 aims to create attacking pressure along the dark squares and potentially isolate Black's queen. Acknowledging the queen's strong outpost, this king subtly repositions to a safer square, preparing for potential complications. Shifting the bishop to b3 clears the path for the rook's activation along the b-file. Securing the king from immediate threats seems logical, though it offers White a temporary respite on the weakened dark squares. Reinforcing the queenside pawn chain after a long maneuvering battle suddenly gives White attacking prospects. Resigning the central files to White's advanced pawns and pieces forces Black into a passive defensive posture. Unveiling a surprising rook lift, aiming to penetrate Black's defenses on the 8th rank. Capturing the rook initiates a likely queen and pawn endgame, where Black's king may feel exposed. Clearing the c-file now frees your rook for aggressive central infiltration, targeting weaknesses. The rook's repositioning to the 7th rank aims to disrupt White's pawn structure and potentially create counterplay on the open files. Clearing the way for the rook to dominate the central files, this captures a key defensive piece. Reclaiming the rook after White's sacrifice initiates a tense positional exchange, aiming to disrupt White's pawn structure. Exchanging bishops simplifies the position, aiming to exploit the exposed Black king in the coming endgame. The endgame transition is immediate, with White having just captured a pawn and eliminated a key defender.